How's it going, everybody? This is Cameron White with White Light Astrology, giving you guys your weekly forecast of what the fuck is going on in the universe. It was what the heck, but I don't care anymore. It's what the fuck now, because let's be real, what is going on in the universe? Anyway, this is for October 1st through October 8th of 2018. There is and isn't a lot happening this week. Like Monday through Wednesday and like Thursday, it's really chill, and then everything kind of picks up once like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then next Monday even hit. So let's kind of go into it. Starting off with today, Monday, we have the moon going into Cancer. Yeah, it is making an opposition to Saturn, which is a little bit interesting. Ooh, I got a itch on my nose. As the moon goes into Cancer, where, you know, it wants to express, it wants to feel, it wants to trust, it also finds a lot of vulnerability. And as it's opposing Saturn, where Saturn is in Capricorn, you know, wanting us to find some discipline, wanting to, you know, cause restraint, cause restriction, and have a lot more limits and discipline with everything else. The moon opposing Saturn can kind of be this time of like, I've got to get this stuff done, versus you don't want to. Or with the moon being in Cancer, where emotionally we want to feel, we want to express, we want to trust, we need to nurture, things of that nature kind of get a little bit of a damper on it with Saturn being in Capricorn, where it's kind of hard for us to really allow that vulnerability and allow that full emotional expression without Saturn in Capricorn being like, well, you can't just feel all that way without doing something with it. You can't just, you know, have all these feelings. You gotta create something out of it. You gotta do something with it. It's gotta mean something and have some type of structure. So as we have this Monday, this is really the only thing that's going on besides it's square to the sun, which I'd also like to add into that mixture. Now that the sun is in Libra, where, you know, the overall like energy of what we're kind of expressing, our overall vitality, where things are kind of centered on, is this Libra energy of things, you know, being a little bit more balanced, being a little bit more fair, having a little bit more peaceful and calmness to it. As the moon goes into Cancer and opposes Saturn and squares the sun right in between it, it's kind of like, hey, you know, what do we have to feel versus what do we have to do? And at the end of the day, it's kind of like, you know, these two people are fighting. You have the sun and Libra trying to balance out both, hey, this is what we need to feel, this is what we need to express, versus this is what we got to accomplish, and this is what's kind of restraining us. So we kind of have to figure out a way to get out of that. So Monday's really not too big of a deal. Moon will be in Cancer, so we'll be a little bit emotional. So I will say that. Going into Tuesday, though, we do have the moon trining Jupiter, the moon trining Venus, the moon trining Neptune, and it's also going to be squaring Pluto. I mean, not squaring Pluto. It will, Mercury will start its square to Pluto. Now, with the moon trining Jupiter, Venus, and Neptune, I think this whole moon in Cancer is going to become a lot more alive. I think we're going to be able to feel a lot more of, you know, Venus stationing retrograde. She's going to be retrograde by the time, on Saturday? So as this moon in Cancer is trining Venus, she's at 10 degrees, she's slowing way, 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 way down. It's trining Jupiter, it's trining Neptune. I think this is going to give us a great opportunity to kind of feel out all of our, I don't want to say our options, but kind of feel everything out from a really big perspective. I mean, we're talking about the moon in Cancer with Jupiter, Neptune, and then Venus, you know, in her, you know, detriment, about to go retrograde. And I think Tuesday is really going to have us really unlock a lot of ourselves that we've been needing to unlock on an emotional level. Really being able to see things very clearly as we move ahead, and especially as things start to change once, you know, we have this new moon next week and Venus going retrograde. So as Tuesday kind of, you know, continues, just kind of feel things out and see how much more clear you could see things, how much more specific and more precise that you can really feel things out with, and what you're kind of feeling, with what you're kind of wanting to get out of the situation, whatever it is that you're in, whatever it is you're trying to focus on. Really try to focus on what you want to gain out of that on an emotional level, on a, you know, feeling level. Now, as we move forward into Wednesday, we do have the moon going into Leo, and it will be conjuncting the North Node. And this is really interesting because as this happens, it will not only be conjuncting the North Node, it will be squaring Uranus, it will be opposing Mars, and then it will eventually square Venus. Now, this moon in Leo is kind of interesting in my opinion, because we're about to go into this new moon. We're about to have Venus retrograde. Mars is about to move out of shadow this week. This moon in Leo conjuncting the North Node is going to have us really fired up about what direction we really want to go into, where we really want to put our focus onto. With the North Node in Leo wanting us to, you know, more about ourselves, more about this self-love, more empowerment, more, you know, gratitude, more heartfelt energy. The moon right here is going to want to eat this up. You're going to want to really channel that. You're going to want to go for it. But it's squaring Uranus, where this is going to have, a lot of ups and downs. It is opposing Mars, where it's kind of like, hey, are you going to keep continuing back to where, Mars and the South Node, all of that energy, are you going to keep continuing back to where you've already been? Or do you want to keep moving forward? And if you're going to keep moving forward, just know that there's going to be a lot of tension in that area, especially with Uranus squaring the moon and Venus about to go retrograde, squaring the moon in Leo. So it's going to be a big cause of like, hey, this is like, I don't even know what I value anymore. I don't even know where I need to jump, where I need to jump from. Venus and Scorpio is like, I'm really holding on to this message, but the moon in Leo kind of wants it all. So you're going to find a very, it's not very stressful, but very dramatic feeling on Wednesday as the moon conjuncts the North Node in Leo, as far as the direction that you're wanting to go, things that you want to be felt, you want to be heard, you want to express, you want to, you want to have fun at the end of the day. And I think that's why it's more important to go with this North Node energy. But just saying, on Wednesday, you're going to feel a lot of tension coming upon you. Coming up onto Thursday, we have the moon squaring Venus. The moon, Mercury will also begin its opposition to Uranus, which is also really interesting, because as the moon squares Venus, and it's kind of like, all this Leo pomposity and, or pomposity, whatever the word is, all of that fiery bravado type energy is going to be kind of like not sitting right with Venus and Scorpio, where Venus and Scorpio is very specific about what she wants, and is very precise with what she's really valuing, and she's really, piercing her way through looking, through all of, Venus's wants, and, she's bringing things together. She wants to create things, but she's being very specific. And as this moon in Leo squares Venus, I think it's going to have us kind of contain that Leo energy. It's kind of like like a good example is, I don't know if you guys listen to metal at all, but there's a vocalist for this band called As I Lay Dying. And, vocalist, he's a really big guy. That's kind of like Leo stuff, entertainment. He went to prison because he hired a hitman to kill his wife, which is really, really crazy. I don't want to get into it right now, but that's kind of like that whole Leo energy working with that Scorpio energy, and a kind of a darker analogy. It's kind of like, all right, like, hire a hitman. Like, we got to find some type of consensus, some type of agreement on where we really need to be channeling this energy. And I don't mean go kill someone or anything like that, but with the moon being in Leo, there's a certain feeling, a certain power that you're looking to get. Venus and Scorpio is being like, hey, what's the one route that we need to go down in order to achieve that? So as that happens, Mercury starts its opposition to Uranus. This is when things are going to start getting a little bit more hectic, where Mercury in Libra is very, passive, can be very complacent, can be very, good at communicating when it comes to, working with people and stuff like that. But as opposed to Uranus, this is kind of like, hey, how can I work on my communication, my speech, my mindset, all of that stuff in a way that's really going to heighten my sensitivity to value, heighten my sensitivity to what I want to accomplish, and making new grounds on something. Like, if you've been watching my videos for a while, I've been talking about Uranus and Taurus. It's kind of like jumping from one iceberg to the next iceberg, and it's a little bit of a slippery slope. Mercury in Libra opposing Uranus and Taurus is kind of like, hey, how can we fall in style? How can we communicate the right message that we want to, that's going to get us to that next place? It's kind of like swindling your way into something. Like, if you're like a girl and you go out and party, I'm sure you've had the experience before where it's kind of like, you say something nice to a guy or whatever and you get a free drink out of it or something like that. Like, that's the Mercury and Libra opposing Uranus and Taurus. Like, say something to get something out of it. Like, really try to work your way into it, especially if you're good at sales. Like, this whole Mercury opposed Uranus thing is really going to give us an opportunity to be a little bit of a smooth talker, be a smooth operator with how we're kind of communicating our message. So then, as we move into Friday, we then have the moon going into Virgo, and it's going to be trining Uranus, it's going to be trining Saturn. This is going to be really, really nice energy. Because once the moon moves into Virgo on Friday, this is where we're like, okay, what do we need to focus on? What do we need to do? What do we need to accomplish? How do I need to put this into my habits, into my day-to-day routine and stuff like that? As it's trining Uranus and Saturn, this is kind of giving us the okay and the go to like, hey, this is what I want to accomplish. This is what I want to go for. This is what I want to organize, and really start to get things done in a very efficient manner. So that's going to be good news on Friday. And then Venus stations retrograde on Friday. She technically doesn't move retrograde till Saturday, but as she slows down, Venus and Scorpio is kind of like, Venus and Scorpio is kind of like Pandora's box almost, in a sense, if I'm thinking of this right. It's kind of like when you discover something that you really, really like and it's really cool, so you invest a lot of time into it, and you start discovering things that you both really want to hold on to, that you really like, and things that you may not like, things that are going to be a little bit more intense, things that are going to bring up a lot more of emotional stuff. And so as Venus is slowing down, it's kind of like you've been digging in this box and you're starting to realize, oh, whoa, I'm finding a lot more things than I was expecting. And so as Venus slows down and starts to station retrograde, this is a really good time to just not necessarily stop what you're doing, but take some internal notes and internalize really what you're doing, what you're discovering, what you're feeling, and what you're kind of going through. And this is going to all start on Friday and Saturday. So then moving into Saturday, the moon will then sextile Venus while it's in Virgo, which is really nice as Venus goes retrograde. I think it's going to give us the right mindset and the right emotional clarity that we need to work with Venus in retrograde. However, it will be opposing Neptune. So as the moon is in Virgo and it opposes Neptune, as we've been dealing with forever now, it's a really good time to kind of see what you don't always see. It's a good time to take off the mask and to clear the fog out of the room in order to kind of see, have a better vision, have a better line of thinking, being able to see basically what road you're going down. So as that happens, as Venus retrogrades, Jupiter's also leaving shadow on Saturday as well. And Jupiter's been, retrograde at 23 degrees Scorpio, I think in like April. I think that's when it happened, I don't remember. But anyway, hasn't been past 23 degrees Scorpio in a very long time. And so now that Jupiter's moving forward, like I've been saying with Jupiter and Scorpio, it's kind of like exposing a lot of the skeletons in your closet, seeing a lot of the things that need to be picked up, that need to be better, kind of realizing at the same time that there's good in that there's good in it, and seeing and revealing these truths and these darker mysteries, but also knowing that in order to, when you reveal those and you become aware of those things, you have to address them. And so as Jupiter moves forward, I think this is going to be a lot about addressing those issues that we've been bringing up with Jupiter and Scorpio. Like what's the deeper, darker truth to this kind of stuff? What's the reality of this? And so as Jupiter moves forward, this is really giving us a lot of, okay, go time to really start addressing it and applying something different. Being more in alignment with I hate to say like your own personal truth, but this is Jupiter and Scorpio. What is not only your personal truth, but what is the truth? And start asserting that and start being more progressive on that. So Venus is going retrograde, Jupiter leaves shadow, all on Saturday. Then going into Sunday, we have the moon squaring Saturn. It's going to be trining Pluto as the moon goes into Libra. So not too much is happening on Saturday. But as we go into, Sunday, not too much happening on Sunday when the moon squares Saturn, squares Pluto or whatever, or trines Pluto. But Monday, the moon will enter Libra. We will have the new moon at Libra at 15 degrees, which, by the way, I also am in the middle of recording new moon horoscopes for all of your signs. I totally forgot to talk about that at the beginning of this video, but I'm starting to do new moon horoscopes for all your signs. Yay! So be on the lookout for that. That's going to be getting posted this week before the new moon. However, new moon in Libra is beginning. Time to reset some intentions on working with people, with relationships, with balance, with beauty, democracy, things of that nature, justice, whatever. Libra stuff. So as we have this new moon, Mars is also leaving shadow on this day. And this new moon is trining Mars. So as Mars leaves shadow, it's been in between the first 9 degrees of Aquarius and the last 2 degrees of Capricorn for a very long time, since like May. And as it's finally leaving shadow and it's starting to move forward again on a more faster level, and it's trining this new moon, this is giving us a lot of the energy that we need in order to kind of separate ourselves from this past of, how we've related to people, how we've isolated ourselves or disconnected ourselves, and really start working on connecting ourselves again. Really start working on like, hey, this is the new, not necessarily the new me I want to be, but this is how I want to relate to people. This is how I want to work with people. This is what needs to be done in order to really get to know people and to really get to work with them. And as Mars moves forward, this is giving us that energy to do something new, to kind of liberate ourselves from that old and to start finding more connections with people that are more, I don't want to say authentic to us, but that resonate more with us, people that want us to be around. So as we go into next Monday, we have this new moon in Libra. That's what's happening this week. It's kind of weird because we're jumping into it's like all of a sudden, Venus goes retrograde, Jupiter leaves shadow, Mars leaves shadow, new moon in Libra. It's kind of like all of this slow process until this weekend. So all I've got to say is during this week, feel it out. Be specific about what you're feeling. Don't be afraid to dissect it. and see how you can come about this in a newer way. And I'll be talking a lot more about this in the new moon horoscope, so be sure to watch out for that. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching all my videos, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, whatever it is that you do, and I will be seeing you guys next week.